Good.
Hey everyone. Welcome back to another live episode of Healthy for My Purpose podcast. Today we are going to be talking about chosen for such a time as this, breaking generational chains of poor health. So, have you ever said to yourself, when you look through your family line and you see, maybe all of your aunts had high blood pressure, or maybe all of your siblings are struggling with obesity. Have you ever thought to yourself, does it have to be this way? In this episode, we are going to explore this concept, which is day 2 of the Healthy Christian Woman BootCamp, of breaking generational curses of poor health and how you can be the lasting change in your family line. And so, we're going to talk about 5 reasons why you should be the chain breaker in your family, and we're going to talk about things from honoring God with your body to creating a new legacy of health for future generations, and all the other stuff in between. And we're hoping that one of these points will motivate you to kind of feel this conviction that I want the buck to stop with me. That
Mm.
maybe all of my sisters had high blood pressure, but I know that I can be the chain breaker and it could stop with me. And we are going to be rooting this in scripture. We are going to be talking a little bit about the science. We are going to be going into what you are going to learn in day 3 of the Healthy Christian Woman Bootcamp, which is going to dive into the framework of breaking generational patterns of poor health by establishing new habits, leading your family towards a healthier future. So I'm excited about this episode because I feel like, sometimes when we think about getting healthy, we think about it almost as an individualistic thing. Like, I'm changing my health, I'm losing the weight, I'm reversing my blood pressure, or whatever the case may be. And it is an individual choice. But here's the thing, when you change your health, you are now not only changing things for yourself, but you are now having the possibility of changing and impacting future generations. One, by setting example, and two, by changing the narrative of health in your family, by changing the recipes and changing what people see as the model of health and doing things a new way. So let's go ahead and just jump into this topic. I'm going to go ahead and start off reading Galatians 5, verse 1, which states, "It is for freedom that Christ has set us free. Stand firm then, and do not let yourselves be burdened against by the yoke of slavery." And so, this scripture to me just rings truth that we have the ability to break the chain and cycles, right? We don't have to be bound or burdened to something in our family line just because it's been that way for the last 20 years or 30 years or whatever it is. But we can actually pull from that freedom in Christ and say, you know what, I'm going to do things differently so that I can now create a new culture of health in my family.
Yeah. Yeah. And a lot of these health issues, as we'll get into a little more, stem from lifestyle habits that we adopt, based on how we're raised, right? So if it's normal for us to have donuts for breakfast and,
Mhm.
you know, drive through fast food for lunch and pizza for dinner. I mean, if that's how we grow up,
Mhm.
um, and it transcends different generations. It might look a little different, as time goes on, but it's
A little
basically the
worse
same.
too. Like,
Yeah, it is worse. Yeah, yeah, because the food system is
mhm.
that much more polluted. But um, it's not necessarily the diseases that are being passed down, it's the lifestyle behaviors that are being passed down. And that's really at the heart of breaking these generational curses, is changing the behavior that leads to the disease.
Mm, yeah. I think that's so freeing because I think, and I know I thought this way for the longest time, I was stuck on the DNA.
Yeah.
You know, I was thinking that this was 100% genetic, that there was some that you had no control, that it
Hmm.
was just something that was passed through the genes. And so if the mother has this, then the daughter has this, and so on and so on. And when you start to realize that the DNA is heavily influenced, not so much by what's running through our veins, but what's running through our dinner and our lunch and our breakfast and our snacks, it's empowering. Even though it's enlightening, it's empowering, because you know what, I could actually change um what I eat. I could change those things. It feels like I'm more in control. You know, when someone says you are genetically wired permanently to be this way, that kind of feels disempowering. But when you know that you can change habits, that you can change what you put in your mouth, and we'll talk about this in the boot camp, you know, spoiler alert, it could actually alter your DNA as well.
Right.
That is empowering.
Hmm.
And it gives you back your power.
Yeah.
It fuses this idea, and I think what the enemy wants to do is let us feel like we don't have any control in our family line, that these diseases are just something that's going to be a part of our family tradition. But
Yep.
that's actually a lie.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah,
It's a lie from the enemy. So should we define generational curses?
sure.
Okay. Yeah, so let's unpack that a little bit. So we're talking about, we kind of mentioned the unhealthy eating patterns that we adopt growing up. I think
Yeah.
another big one too is living a sedentary lifestyle. You know,
Hmm.
if you grow up in a family environment
Hmm.
that values sitting in front of the television,
Hmm.
or nowadays it's, being on a computer, or whether it's, working, or even social media, or video games are also very popular, but just not moving your body, just being sedentary, that can also be another lifestyle behavior that can promote generational poor health. So if it's not natural for you to get out and move on
Hmm.
the regular, and I see this, like, um, when I first made the change, and when I share my story, I talk about how I had so much energy. Like when I started eating like Daniel, I had so much energy. I didn't know what to do with myself. Like I started bike racing at 42 years old. So it was like all of that was so not my normal upbringing. Like I can remember asking my mom about exercise, and she said, "Well, I get my exercise carrying the groceries from the grocery store to my car, or from the car to the house." Like that was her idea of physical activity, and that's what I grew up hearing.
Hmm.
Now, thankfully, my dad was a little bit different story. He and my mom were like 20 years apart, so they're like really big age difference between the two.
Hmm.
But he would tell me stories of when he was younger, and he was a avid swimmer. He would swim the Mississippi River, long distance
Hmm.
swimming too. Like he would go for long periods. But then, as he got older, but he was also a smoker and didn't necessarily eat the best diet. That all caught up with him, and he became more and more sedentary
Hmm.
as he got older. So I didn't get to see him be active, but I heard stories of him being active. And but I still lived in a very sedentary environment. And you look at my other family members, they're living the same environment that I grew up in. I'm the anomaly in my family. So
Yeah.
anyway, I didn't mean to go off on a tangent about this, but
No,
it's
that's good though, because it's showing kind of like how this shows up in real life. You know what I mean? Like, and I think too, you know, I look at my own family too, thinking about it is, you know, it's almost like sometimes as a family, it's not even that you're consciously passing this on, but as society evolves, things change, like, I'm just thinking like with my parents, for example, like when they lived in Jamaica and they had to walk to school and they had to drive miles to school, they had to go pick up water and then come back. And their community supported, not consciously, but just supported a very active life because of the fact
Right.
that you had to walk everywhere. There was no vehicles. And then you come to, North America, and you don't have to walk everywhere. And then you have your kids who are now into TV and video games, and now they're more sedentary. And then it becomes this thing that just kind of morphs into this thing
Right.
if you are not intentional about how you want to create a health narrative in your family, because it morphs into its own reality. Now we have kids who are just literally not even riding bikes anymore.
No.
When we were small, we were outside, we were playing, until like the evening, until the sun was going down. Now you have to fight these kids to go out and play.
Right.
So there's almost like an environment that's resisting against us, that's kind of evolving. So there's that norm, and then it's your own family culture as well. Yeah, so sedentary is definitely a big one. And if no one's encouraging you to move as a family, like, do your family go for walks? Do you do anything active together as a family? And if you never see it and everybody's just watching TV or everyone's on their cell phone, we don't realize, but like you said, we're creating a culture
Right.
that's showing that sedentary lifestyle is the norm and active is not a priority.
Right.
Yeah.
Right. 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 And you see the biggest distinction. Well, I see it when I'm out being active and I see other people, whether they're training for an Ironman or
Yeah.
some marathon or whatever, and they have their kids either in the cart with them or they're,
Mm,
somehow the kids are riding on the bike with next to them while they're running, whatever that involvement is,
yeah.
you're that exposure that you're giving the kid is paying huge dividends down the road in terms of expectations of how you move and live your life. But I think another one is, stress related illness. Stress kills. I mean, stress is very, very dangerous.
Mm-hmm.
Um, and and when you're under chronic stress,
Mm-hmm.
it does promote inflammation in your body. It does promote illnesses, and having stress related illnesses, is something that doesn't get talked about a lot, but is absolutely real.
Yeah. Yeah. And then you kind of look back and you say to yourself, how does your family handle stress?
Right.
You know, um, was it something, was your family the type of family that ignored stress, that just kept on plowing through? Um, you know, Workaholic parents, like there's so many ways again that we learn the behavior, and then we just do the same thing, and then we end up with the same chronic health issue that comes from it,
Yeah.
right?
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
yeah,
Yeah. We
definitely.
did get a comment here
Yeah.
from I-58 Farms. I think it's Will.
Mhm.
I come from a long line of doctors out of Athens, Georgia, that all had stomach problems. Yeah, my father
Mhm.
had 80% of his stomach removed. And
Wow.
eating whole food plant-based cured my ulcers and reflux. Yeah, that's very powerful. Yeah. Yep. So
That's
here,
a perfect example, because that's an example of how lifestyle can trump quote unquote genetics.
Mhm.
Because everybody had it, but because he made some tweaks on his lifestyle, he was able to get around that. And so no one's not denying that there's some genetic components that could go through bloodlines, but what we'll talk a little bit deeper in the boot camp is that lifestyle can actually affect how DNA shows up, how genetics
Mhm.
show up. So thank you for sharing that. That was a powerful example.
Yeah, thanks, Will.
So let's see. So we're going to get into some reasons, and I guess the goal of this podcast today is to motivate you or inspire you to say, you know what, there's a lot of things that run in my family. Some of the things I'm even scared of personally that may show up, but I want to be the person that makes that change, right? And so we want to get into some of the reasons why you should want to be the chain breaker in your family, right? You should want to have the desire to be. And the first one is, um, and we always talk about this one, but we can't talk about it enough, is this idea of honoring God with your body, right? That again is saying, you know what, God, I want the buck to stop with me because I want to show gratitude for the gift of health that you could potentially work through me to change my family.
Mhm.
Right. And so that is definitely the one reason, that the same reason why we even want to get healthy for an individual reason is the same reason that we could say, hey, I only don't want to just get healthy for myself, but I want to um, show my family that it could be done, that I could show them a different way. Because let's face it, a lot of times the reason why our families are continuing the same way is because we don't see an alternative. We haven't seen a new pattern or a new way of looking at things. And sometimes we may stand out as a sore thumb when we decide that we're going to be the chain breaker, but eventually the person that stood out as a sore thumb actually becomes the person that's the chain breaker in the end. And so they kind of go hand in hand.
Yeah, yeah, so true.
All right. The second one is creating a new legacy of health for future generations, right? In Proverbs 13, verse 22, it states, a good person leaves an inheritance for their children's children.
Hmm.
And so when we think of an inheritance, a lot of times we're thinking of land and money and all of that kind of stuff. But one of the things is also leaving an inheritance of health. We talked about, you know, your health is your wealth, right? And are we leaving a legacy of showing our children and our future generations and what it looks like and what it takes to actually live out a healthy lifestyle, right? So that it becomes just instinctive, that your kids grow up saying, hey, I know how to put a well balanced meal together, I value exercise, I value rest. Like there's this culture that you have given to your children that is an inheritance that
Hmm.
they just naturally pass down, because now they're cooking the proper meals and they're exercising and they're resting and they're handling stress in a way that's helpful. And so you end up passing that on.
Yep. Yeah. So those healthy habits aren't just for you as the individual, but it's for
Mm,
the family. It's the whole family and the people around you that see you lead, and because you become kind of leading by example, you become that person that stands out,
yeah,
in the crowd, so to speak, is different in a positive way, in a good way.
yeah. And the third reason is to break free from fear and bondage. I know a lot of people who, maybe a parent had cancer or died at a certain age.
Hmm.
And then when they kind of get close to that age, there's a sense of fear.
Yeah.
It's like, well, my parent passed away with this at this age, and I'm coming up to this. And there's this living in fear around health. I'm afraid to go and get my checkup at 50 because when my mom went. And so there's this spirit of fear that can linger around us when we kind of feel out of control of health outcomes in our family line. And so Second Timothy 1 verse 7 says, for God has not given us a spirit of fear, but of power, love, and a sound mind. Fear of illness or family health patterns can be replaced with confidence in God's power to transform. So that's another reason to be a chain breaker. It empowers you to not have to live in fear, but to use that energy to say, you know what changes can I make so that I could feel confident that I don't have to live in fear that this is going to happen or that's going to happen, but I'm positioning myself in the best way I can to avoid the same things that my parent or maybe another person in my family went through.
Yeah. All right. Yeah. So the fourth one is to improve your quality of life and ability to serve God. And the reality is that our physical health affects pretty much all aspects of our life. It affects our energy, it affects our focus, it affects our, you know, mental clarity, spiritual clarity, our ability to fulfill God's calling. And, I'm talking about all the things that, you just got through talking about, Cersei. You're talking about the food that you fuel your body with, how
Mhm.
you move your body,
Mhm.
how you manage stress or handle stretch, how you embrace rest is part of that. And, and that quality of life, is something that a lot of people don't have today, sadly, and even at younger and younger ages, because, of our food environment and our lifestyles being so sedentary, and, kids as young as 16 getting type 2 diabetes, is just, it's just, it's insane. It's crazy. But so really, you being that chain breaker in your family improves that quality of life and your ability to show up for whatever God's put on your heart to do on this earth.
Yeah. And so the last point is to be in a light and an example in your family. Matthew 5, verse 16 says, "Let your light shine before others, that they may see your good deeds and glorify your Father in heaven." Here's the thing, your transformation of health can inspire other people in your family to make the changes. And it can create this ripple effect of health and faith in your family. Because once someone sees, okay, well, she did it, she reversed her high blood pressure, she's managing her diabetes, she's lost over 50 pounds, it inspires the people around you in your community, in your family, and even for your children to say, you know what, I know what a picture of health looks like. And even though you're not verbally sometimes like spelling it out, they're watching and they're really absorbing all of that. So
Yeah.
it's your ability to shine and make a difference in your family.
Yeah. So, what do you need to do to start breaking the chains? Well, let me just first start off by saying it's not easy. Okay, it's not. It's simple, but it's not easy.
Yeah.
So, and what I mean by that is it'll feel awkward because one, you're going through the change yourself.
Uh-huh.
And what will typically happen is when you go through the change, you're going to be detoxing from unhealthy foods. Your brain is going to be saying, I don't like the taste of this. And sometimes you'll have physical symptoms like flu-like symptoms because your body has, a lot of stuff in it that it needs to get rid of.
Mhm.
And you're detoxing. So you might feel like you'll have a headache or flu-like symptoms even for a short period of time. It doesn't last. And while your body detoxes and you're nourishing yourself with nutrient dense foods. And so you've got that going on. And then you've got people at home not on the same path with you, which can make it hard.
Mhm.
Sometimes you have people who are in your family who are vocal, like, why are you doing this? This doesn't
Mhm.
make any sense. I don't, there's going to be pushback or whatever. But you have to just kind of know that going in and stay steadfast and determined to see this through. It does get easier, it does get better, and the rewards are definitely worth it. Um, so, we want you to do the boot camp with us, and we'll get into that in a minute. But if you want to do something like right now, because the boot camp isn't until January 6th, start small, pick a habit, start with something like, drinking more water, eating an additional serving of vegetables or fruits.
Mhm.
Um, get in an extra, bout of exercise, whether it's a walk or, hitting the weight room or whatever your mode of movement is, just do that consistently, or maybe do a little bit more than what you're doing, depending on where you're at.
Mhm.
And then I would say, really dig deep, sit down, pray, meditate, have a conversation with God, and write down your why for wanting to be a chain breaker in your family. Like, write it down. Don't just think about it. Write it down, put it on paper, make sure you document it, because that why is what you're going to go back to when things get a little tough, when things get a little uncomfortable, when things get a little difficult. You're going to go back to that why. In fact, if you really are serious about this, because here's the thing, we know a lot of people have health conditions. We know a lot of people are struggling with high blood pressure, type 2 diabetes, high cholesterol. Maybe there's some cancer concerns in the family, all of that. And you're trying to be preventative because you don't want to get that diagnosis. This is the thing. It's about really getting serious about your why and sticking to that, and then going forward with the expectation that God's going to come into this process and he's going to help me through this as I take steps to break these generational curses in my family.
Mhm. Yeah. And the other thing, is to reflect on this scripture, Deuteronomy 30, verse 19, which states, choose life so you and your children may live. And that's really what it comes down to. It's that, you know, when we choose our health, we're really choosing life, you know. And, there's another scripture that says, what's set before you is life and death, choose life. It when we choose eating the right foods, when we choose moving our bodies, getting the rest, all of those things, what we are essentially doing is choosing life, not just for us, but for our family members, right? And it's allowing us to, the other piece is surrendering our unhealthy cycles to God and seeking his strength to create the lasting change, because you have to be willing to depend on God. This is not going to be, like Gigi said, that it's simple, but it's not easy. Um, it's not easy, but you can rely on God's strength. And so that's the good news about the not easy part, is that you really can tap into God's strength in those moments to help guide you through and to be consistent. Um, And one of the things we always stress, and we're going to talk about why joining the Healthy Christian Woman Bootcamp is the best thing that you can do for yourself, is just this idea of having accountability and being in community to help you stay consistent. Because your health journey wasn't necessarily designed for you to just do it on your own. A lot of times you need the support, you need the community, you need to surround yourself with people who are doing the same thing so that you can actually stay consistent. A lot of times many people are slipping and going back to because there's no environment to support them. Nobody's eating the way you eat. Nobody understands, why inviting God into your health journey is so good. And sometimes we rely so much on our family when we're called to actually be, for such a time as this, as being the chain breaker. We go to our family for the support that they can't give us, because we're the ones called to break the chain in our own family so that they can see the example. So now we have to seek support outside of our family. And that's where the Healthy Christian Woman Bootcamp comes in. If you're listening to this episode and you're like, you know what, I really feel like I'm called for such a time as this. Like, God has been taking me through a journey and convicting me and talking to me consistently that he wants me to get healthy. And I believe that God is going to use me in my family. Then you want to jump into the Healthy Christian Woman Bootcamp, because it's going to give you the support, the community, the knowledge to really launch and really become that chain breaker in your family. On day 3, we are really going to go dive deep into breaking generational patterns of poor health. That's actually the theme for day 3 of the boot camp. And so we're going to get into the science. We're going to get into a deeper spiritual conversation around why you may be called for such a time as this. And so get into the boot camp, get the support, get that community going, get the knowledge, and see what God does.
Yeah, and we've had success stories with ladies and who've gone through the boot camp, and men are absolutely welcomed as well,
Mhm.
with changing generational patterns of poor health in their family, both in terms of their children or grandchildren around them and their parents. So it's kind of
Yeah.
gone both ways. So it's not, it's, even if you don't have children, you might have nieces or nephews, or you might have a parent or even a sibling. We've had that as well. So yeah, we've had siblings, get on board, with this as well, because of health issues and wanting to rectify those. So yeah, so join it. You really, honestly, it's 5 days that'll change your life. I mean, it is mind blowing what you're going to get out of this. There is it's kind of 6 days, because we have a kickoff day the day before, but to kind of set the stage for the week. But we give you a meal plan with a devotional guide and journal prompts, and you will attend nightly lives. Now, we will have replays, so if you can't catch the lives, you can join or catch the replay every night. So the week of January 6th, the 6th through the 10th, live at 7:30 p.m. Eastern. That's 4:30 p.m. Pacific. And as Cersei said, you'll be in a community, and we're going to go through 5 power-packed nights
Mhm.
of biblical teachings, plant-based nutrition education, and we're going to unpack the business for why you're sick, why you're struggling to lose this weight, why your A1C keeps going up, why your blood pressure keeps going up, why you're being asked to take medications or increase your medications or take more medications. There's a reason for it. And it's a system designed to get, basically to get you sick and keep you sick, not kill you, but just keep you sick.
Yeah. So, meditate on that. Perhaps you're called for such a time as this. Perhaps you were positioned in your family. Perhaps you're the one listening to this podcast right now. And that might just even be the sign that you are called to for this moment, right? That changing your health is not only going to impact you, but it may also impact your family members and your bloodline ahead of you. And so this is another powerful reason why taking charge of your health is so important, because not only are you impacting what you're going to experience, but you can potentially impact generations to come, and you may just be that one person.
That's it.
All right. So we'll see you guys next week. But if you have any questions, I don't know if there's any comments, Gigi, any more comments, but if you have any questions, you can circle back and put it in this video.
Yep. All right. We'll see you next week.